Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. Today, I just want to get a couple of things off my mind. I'm going to post two videos, just sharing my thoughts with you all briefly about a couple of issues. But before I do that, I want to let you all know that I plan on doing a regular live stream show here on YouTube in July, starting in July, after Ramadan, so that I'll be able to spend enough time focusing on the program and developing the content for the program. And so I welcome your ideas for topics. I welcome your ideas for guests. So I look forward to your feedback. I want to make sure that I have all the kinks worked out, that I know all the technical aspects of doing the live stream, because I did a couple of them before and there were some technical issues. So I want to have all that stuff worked out before I begin to do these live streams. And they will be about issues of substance as usual. It won't be any YouTube shenanigans and, you know, gossiping, all that kind of stuff. It'll be about real, actual issues that matter to our people. So, with that said, let me just go on to my first subject, and that's about this protest at Congress. Members of the Democratic Party and members of the Congressional Black Caucus have been staging a sit-in Congress. They are demanding that there be a vote on gun regulation and gun legislation. They're saying that if there's no bill, there will be no break, and they're holding a protest at the Senate. Apparently, there are two pieces of legislation that they want to have brought before Congress. One deals with people who are on the no-fly list, suspected terrorists that are on the no-fly list. They say, well, if you're on the no-fly list, you should not be able to purchase firearms. And that's reasonable. That makes a lot of sense. Also, they're demanding that people have federal background checks before they're able to purchase certain weapons. Those are reasonable measures that anybody with any kind of common sense would support, and there is no justification for Congress not bringing those matters up for a vote. So I agree with the principle. I agree with the whole objective behind their protests. But in terms of the protests, I just want to share a couple of my thoughts about that. I think that the protest is a display of the utter dysfunction that exists in Congress right now. You literally have Congress protesting against itself. Things like sit-ins are actions that people use when they are powerless, when they don't have any kind of avenue to affect change in government, when they don't have access to the halls of power. Sit-ins were something that we did during the Civil Rights Movement, that our people did during the Civil Rights Movement, because they didn't have elected officials representing them in Congress. They didn't have elected officials representing them on the local level. So they had to engage in acts of civil disobedience in order to force the powers that be to make certain changes. But here you have members of Congress, people that are supposed to represent power, people that are supposed to represent influence. It makes no sense for them to be engaged in an act of civil disobedience. That doesn't speak to their power or anything. In fact, it speaks to their powerlessness. It speaks to their impotence. It speaks to the fact that they have rendered themselves weak. They have rendered themselves obsolete by engaging in old tactics from the civil rights era that really have limited relevance in today's era, especially an era where you have all these black elected officials that are supposed to have actual power. I mean, there's no reason for members of Congress to be singing "We Shall Overcome" in 2016 when you got black members of Congress, you got a black president, a black attorney general. It just makes no sense. Instead of singing We Shall Overcome and staging a civil rights protest in the hall of Congress, protesting against yourself, you need to be better organized politically. And instead of people having some vigil outside of Capitol Hill, instead of having a vigil outside of the Capitol, people need to get out there and vote. They need to get out there and vote these congressmen out of office, these Republicans that are holding up this important legislation. They need to be voted out of office. It's just that simple. And I know that some of them come from safe and protected districts where it's very difficult to have them removed. But there are others where it is contested, where these elections are hotly contested. And I think that these members of Congress need to be mobilizing their resources to energize voters, to get them out to vote to make a difference. And I think that these protesters, instead of protesting in front of Capitol Hill, in front of the Capitol building, they need to protest at the ballot box and actually make a difference in this election. It just reminds me of all those people turning out to all those Bernie Sanders rallies. You had thousands upon thousands of people turning out for those rallies. But did they vote? That's the question that needs to be asked. Did they actually get out there and vote? Because if they didn't vote, it doesn't make any kind of difference. It doesn't make a difference how many protests you turn out to if you don't actually vote people into office that will make the kind of changes that you want to see become a reality. So, those are just some of my thoughts. And I just think that the civil rights movement shouldn't be hijacked as, as Yvette Cardell pointed out on Facebook. It's like people are using the civil rights tactics and phraseology and slogans to promote a democratic agenda, which is completely different from what our elders and ancestors fought for. So those are my thoughts. Please tell me what you think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace. And before I go, I'll just say this. Imagine if 5,000 black men armed with assault rifles marched on the capitals of various states around this country. Imagine what would happen. I'll tell you what would happen. Congress would ban assault rifles overnight. They would call for these background checks overnight. There would be no need for any sit-ins or any protests or any long deliberations. You would have gun control legislation overnight.